All right. Good morning, everyone. Brad Roltgen here with the Fresno Bitcoin and Cryptocurrency Investors Group. We did start in Fresno, but we've kind of expanded with the whole COVID thing, and we've got folks joining us from all over the country, which is great. Today, we're going to be talking with Kamal Hubbard. I met him a couple months ago at a Bitcoin conference, and every time I talk to him since or find out more about him, he's doing different things in the crypto space. So it's going to be an interesting discussion. I do have the Google Doc like we normally do to put comments, questions, and especially links to follow up after the meeting is open. I'm going to post that link in the chat here again. Throughout the meeting, you guys can jump in, raise your hand, or simply just post a question in the chat. To get, to cover, or if you have, something that wasn't clear, that kind of thing, we can clarify. Yeah, I don't know where to start, so I'm just going to turn it over to Kamal. Maybe give us a little bit of an introduction. Like I said, you're doing so much in the crypto space. I don't want to try to cover that and that, but maybe, give us a little background on yourself, and then we'll jump in and take questions throughout the time. And I know we talked about a recent news item that we'll cover. So maybe, I don't know if we want to do that at the beginning and then kind of work back, but whatever you'd like to do.
So, yeah, we could talk about that at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
all right, good. So let me stop my sharing and you can go ahead and start your screen and sharing your screen, and we'll go from there.
All right. So this is practical uses of DeFi. My name is Kamal Hubbard. I'll briefly get into another quick introduction of myself, but I do want to start by saying thank you to Brad for inviting me to the Fresno Bitcoin and Cryptocurrency Investors Meetup. Thanks, Brad. I mean, it means a lot to be able to speak in front of people, especially on a Saturday. So I want to thank everybody for joining too. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules, your weekends. For sure, you could be doing a lot of other things, but it's always great to talk. This shows your interest, not only in blockchain, crypto, but especially DeFi. And hopefully you guys see the value proposition that DeFi presents. And hopefully I'm able to teach or share some new information with you guys today. I heard the young lady earlier talking about, all the stuff that she was doing with oracles and Solana and, pancake swap. So it sounds like you guys are pretty knowledgeable. And once again, hopefully I can share some new information with you guys. Right. So once again, my name is Kamal Hubbard. I'm a lawyer by training and the author of DeFi for the Diaspora. It is a book that I wrote on DeFi and published in 2021. So published it last year, wrote most of it in 2020. I'm a civil rights officer at a local transportation agency here in the Bay Area, but I did postdoc work managing research at Stanford's Rock Center for Corporate Governance, which is a joint collaboration between Stanford's Graduate School of Business and Stanford's Law School. While there, I worked with a former Securities and Exchange Commissioner on federal securities litigation issues, mainly dealing with stock fraud, enforcement actions with the SEC and the DOJ, related once again to federal securities litigation, securities class actions, as well as actions under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. So global corruption, dealing with listed companies, and certified in fraud examination, cybersecurity, and decentralized finance. So while at Stanford doing research on stocks and stock fraud, I kept coming across this thing called Bitcoin in 2011. I kept hearing about it, doing research and looking at news. And ultimately, in 2013, I just decided to conduct my own independent research, which I did for 2 years before I actually entered a position in Bitcoin. So, part of me looking back feels like I should have just jumped into Bitcoin in 2013, made my mistakes, and I would be maybe retired by now. But, you know, there's something to be said. There needs to be a balanced approach between, you know, doing your research and actually just getting in there, getting in the game, you know. And I don't know, for people who do have those trepidations, and I would just say get started as soon as possible. It's still early. It's not too late. We're still early entrants into this whole thing. And ultimately, you're going to have your own journey. So just like I've had mine. Oh, whoops. Have to go back to this, of course, you guys. You know, none of what's being presented in this presentation is meant to be financial advice, legal advice, or tax advice. Continue to do your own research. That's why you're here. You're doing your research by being here. But, you know, I just got to put that disclaimer out there because, you know, we make our own decisions, and clearly cryptocurrencies have a risk of loss. So we'll talk about risk a little bit later, though, because I think it's also important to cover that. Now,
by the way, is there a way for us to get in touch with you if we had a question, an occasional question?
Yeah. I was gonna have all my social links at the end.
Okay.
So
Yeah, and Robert, we'll have those in the Google Doc like we always do. And
Oh,
the
awesome.
link to the Google Doc is, I've been posting it in chat here, and then it's always on the event page, you know, on Meetup kind of thing, right where you saw the link, you know, to get here. So
Now, it seems the
be
link was
posted there.
inside. I thought I had to go sort of inside of Google Docs to get to the link. So is that in fact the Google Docs link?
No, if you go to the event page,
Yep.
it's on the event page. They're right in the details. If you
Okay.
look at that on Meetup.
I thought I had to go to, I went to some funny link in order to get to to the Zoom link.
Right. Well, you always, the way Meetup works is you always have to RSVP to the meeting before it shows you the Zoom link.
And then the link came up directly. But anyways,
That's for the Zoom, but the Google Doc is always in the description.
Oh, right. Yes, I saw that. And
Yeah.
it said you had to go into the Google link apparently to get to the Zoom link. At least I thought it was a Google link. So I went to that. I was futzing around for about 10 minutes trying to figure out how to get into your meeting. So anyways.
Yeah, well, I do post it in there as well, but it's also in Meetup after you RSVP.
Okay.
So, okay. Yeah. So if you have any questions right now, Robert, go ahead and just post those in chat, and we'll kind of, you know, bring those up, you know, throughout the presentation.
Okay. I will just say I have difficulty dealing with chat. I know I have some neurological issues that make it hard for me to type. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So maybe just raise your hand, and then we'll call on you when. Yeah. So go ahead. But thank you for bringing that up. And if anybody, I'm sure other people had that same question, and because a bunch of more people have joined us since we started. So good reminder there. So
I mean, I definitely reserve time towards the end for questions, but if you guys just want to jump in there and ask something, you know, feel free. I like the enthusiasm. So you know, and I think this should be a discussion more than anything. So I'm going to continue to proceed here. So, you know, when we look at the legacy financial system, also known as the traditional financial system, it's commonly being termed TradFi now, traditional finance. You know, one of the major problems is it's highly bureaucratic, right? It's centralized. You have a banker who needs to go to their bank manager, who might need to escalate it to, you know, a vice president if you want to get a loan, possibly a business loan. So, you know, the centralized nature where third parties have decision-making authority on your financial decisions, in my view, is a problem. Another major problem with traditional finance is it has a historical track record of being discriminatory. In fact, Citigroup did a study, published a study a couple of years ago that said due to practices like redlining, blockbusting, and denial to access of capital to women and minority businesses, that has cost the US economy over $16 trillion. So, That's unfortunate, but that's part of the story that needs to be told when it comes to the traditional financial system. And another problem is it can be costly, especially if you're banking internationally. All the SWIFT fees, overdraft charges, monthly maintenance fees. Banks always try and find a way to put a fee on something, right? Now, the solutions that are presented with DeFi, one of the best things about it is that it's easy access. It has a very low barrier to entry. As long as you have an internet connection and an internet connected device, you can interact with decentralized financial protocols. So that leads to the next solution of DeFi being permissionless, right? So you're taking out the centralization, you're taking out that third-party decision-making authority in the process, and you're able to get a DeFi loan on Sunday morning at 2 a.m., without pants, however you want to do it, right? You can do that, and you can get a loan without asking permission. It is essentially permissionless. And that is one of the great things about DeFi. You no longer have to ask anyone permission to interact with a lot of the same services that the traditional financial institutions provide, and low cost. So in comparison, smart contracts on these DeFi networks or these various networks and DeFi protocols are much less costly. So, I say that with the exception of the Ethereum blockchain, DeFi on Ethereum. Even though the gas fees have gotten a lot better, there are many alternatives to Ethereum right now. But I'll still say DeFi on Ethereum is still very cool. It's still very fun, but it is much more costly in comparison to some of the other networks out there. But we can get into that a little bit later for sure. Now, some of you may be asking, what is DeFi? Hopefully there's some people here. We have a good mix of people who know what DeFi is and are messing around with it already. I heard, like I said, someone earlier mentioned Pancake Swap, so it sounds like some of you guys are in the game. But for people who don't know what this is, I'm glad you guys are here so I can share what DeFi is. Ultimately, DeFi is short for decentralized finance, and broadly it encompasses things like decentralized exchanges, also known as DEXs, decentralized money markets, decentralized stablecoins, decentralized insurance products, as well as decentralized derivatives or synthetics. I'm not going to go too deep into each of these, but that is pretty much the main universe of what DeFi covers. And it's important to know that DeFi runs on smart contracts. And I'll get into what smart contracts are in a minute, but these smart contracts interact things like swaps on DEX, so trading from one asset to another, staking, where you're essentially locking an asset to receive an interest or to receive interest, liquidity provision, which is really pledging more than one asset to make sure that liquidity is available on decentralized exchanges, yield farming, which I'll get to in a second as well, voting in DAOs or governance on DeFi protocols requires a smart contract interaction, and of course NFTs themselves are a smart contract interaction. So here's a definition of just what smart contracts are. They are self-executing contracts with the terms of the agreement between the buyer and the seller being directly written into the lines of code. The code and the agreements contained therein exist across a distributed, decentralized blockchain network. The code controls the execution, and the transactions are trackable and irreversible. So they're trackable on the blockchain and often are irreversible. So, you know, if we think of conventional contracts, let's just say, you know, Brad comes to me and says, hey, Kamal, will you paint my house or paint my fence, right? And if you paint my fence, I'll pay you $100. Now, he's trusting that I'm going to get up in the morning, go to the paint store, buy the paint, show up and paint the fence. He's trusting me to do this. And ultimately, he's trusting me to perform on that contract. And when I do that, I'm trusting that he's going to pay me that $100 that he said he's going to pay me. With smart contracts, the trust has been taken out of that relationship between either the buyer or the seller, party A and part B. As long as someone performs, trust doesn't need to be there. And once again, the smart contract will execute payment. So let's just say in a theoretical example, once again, Brad just puts out there on the internet somewhere, hey, if someone will come and paint my fence, I will give them $100 in crypto. Someone shows up, regardless if it's me or someone else, and actually performs, performance has been verified, then the funds will automatically move to whoever performed on that contract. So that's how smart contracts are smart and vary from conventional contracts.
Yeah, let me stop you there just for a second. And I know there's been like a question that's come up is how or who or what decides if the performance has been completed, you know, if the fence has been painted, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that might not necessarily be the best example, however, or at least right now, but ultimately whoever is rendering performance, it will be verified. There will be some sort of verification mechanism. Now, typically when we're talking about these things, whoever is interacting, there will be some sort of, once again, code that will be able to verify it. So in the future, there may be something where someone takes a picture and an AI bot will basically be able to verify that performance has been rendered. Now, we'll kind of get into this a little bit later when we're actually talking about the practical uses of DeFi. So I'm going to share a little bit more about that.
Excellent. Yeah, I want to keep it as practical as possible. Some of this stuff gets a little crazy, and so the fence painting example is a great one. I often use mowing the lawn for somebody weekly, and at 6 o'clock, you know, on Friday afternoon, you know, the guy across the street kind of works as the oracle and says, yeah, that grass is cut, so go ahead and release the funds to the guy who mowed the lawn, and away we go, kind of thing. So, well,
yeah, I think the most important thing, once again, about smart contracts is it creates a trustless relationship between parties who don't need to have any sort of knowledge of one another. If you have a need, you post it in the smart contract, and someone, regardless of, you know, whether they're next door to you, down the street, or in another hemisphere, can perform. And, you know, that performance gets validated once again through the code or through some sort of AI bot, or, you know, maybe even a third party themselves, which then we start to question decentralization. But let's not go too far down that road. I'm just trying to use something for the sake of example here.
Okay, we did have one question about how does that work for DeFi loans, which that would probably be a pretty easy example compared to the painting or the mowing example.
Yeah, so DeFi loans are typically, they are collateralized, right? DeFi is trying to figure out how to do uncollateralized loans, but honestly, in a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense right now until some other mechanisms are created. But what will happen with most DeFi loans is you go to, let's just say, MakerDAO, or you go to Aave, and you will bring your crypto onto their platform, right? And what you essentially do is you pledge your crypto as collateral. And then you can take a loan out against your crypto. So let's just say you have $1,000 of Ethereum. You know, once whatever that value of your crypto is, you can then take a loan out against your own crypto. Now, especially when we're thinking about these variable assets like Ethereum, you know, it's subject to market volatility. So it may be $1,000 one day, but then it could be 800 another day, or it could be 1,200 another day. And ultimately what will happen is there will be a collateralization ratio. And if you fall below a certain ratio, your collateral can then be liquidated. So let's just say something happens, the crypto markets take a hit, and your $1,000 of Ethereum the day before now is $400, and you've taken out a $600 loan. Well, they're going to start to liquidate your Ethereum unless you bring more crypto to boost your collateralization ratio, right? So ultimately, the crypto that you put up as collateral can be liquidated in certain circumstances. So one way to hedge against that is just to, when you do get a crypto loan, use stable coins, because stable coins are going to be pegged to typically a $1 value. Sometimes it's certain commodities as well. But, you know, once again, that's what stable coins are there for, is to hedge against market risk.
Okay, Robert, did you have a quick question? I saw your hand there on the
Yeah,
camera. And then,
well, yeah,
okay,
I still don't, this thing of gas, I hear about gas fees, especially in connection with simply buying coins or, so it's just explain more about gas. I heard you say that, I guess you need, well, yeah, just tell us about that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
perfect
Sure
timing with the
thing.
slide. Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
actually at my hand raised. I was just going to make a quick comment, you know, regarding, you know, you mentioned the awkwardness of conventional finance, and, you know, people get overcharged. Well, the big thing you should have mentioned is credit cards. That's the biggest scam of all.
Yeah, you know what? That is a very important point that I left out, right? So, and that goes back to the uncollateralized loans in DeFi. They're trying to figure out how to do it, but then it goes against the whole principle of putting people in debt, right? So if you have a loan that's collateralized, once again, you're putting up some degree of property of your own, that you own, that ultimately you will want to protect. And if you default, then you lose that property. Now, with credit cards, you don't have a collateral. And yes, this has caused a major debt crisis, consumer debt crisis in the United States. And you're right, to a large extent, a lot of these companies are bordering on what could be considered predatory with credit cards and credit card rates and getting people into credit. So I do think the way that currently, the way that DeFi loans are structured, it imparts some degree of responsibility on the user, because you want to avoid losing your crypto. And so it makes you either, you know, pay off your loan, or make sure that your collateralization ratio is in a safe place so that you don't get liquidated. And it forces you as a borrower to be responsible. But yeah, I appreciate that point, Robert, and I'll incorporate that into other discussions. That's honestly, it's a no-brainer. So I appreciate you bringing up that point.
And could you explain gas fees? I hear about those in connection with sometimes buying coins or something. It's kind of confusing.
Yeah. So,
Excuse me.
you know, I don't want to go too deep into this theory, but every network, there's a network fee that's associated with a transfer on Ethereum or Ethereum virtual machine style networks. You're going to pay a network fee associated with a smart contract interaction. And that's what gas is. Gas is just that network fee. So if you have a wallet in Ethereum and you want to swap Ethereum for USDC, for example, right? That is a smart contract interaction that's taking place on a decentralized exchange. And in order to facilitate that swap, you are going to have to pay a fee for the smart contract to trade one asset for another. So that's what gas fees are. So even if you're moving, if you want to move Ethereum from one wallet to another, you're going to have to pay a network fee. So that's what gas, you have to have the underlying asset. So if you are doing any of these smart contracts on Ethereum, you have to have a small amount of Ethereum. I say a small amount, but you have to have a certain amount of Ethereum in order to move those assets, to swap those assets, to stake your assets, to provide liquidity, to do all sorts of things. So, you know, that leads me to the next slide here. So this is a practical tip. This isn't a practical use, but this is just a practical tip to keep in mind in DeFi. You know, your gas strategy needs to be tailored not just to the network you're on, but also the protocol that you're interacting with. This can be unpacked in a lot of different ways. So I put the chessboard here because when I was getting certified in DeFi, and this is in 2020, so this is when DeFi was starting to really take off. You know, these DeFi protocols were equated to games. So is it anyone ever heard that term DeFi games before? Yeah, so, you know, I was quote unquote playing these DeFi games, but the reason why you almost have to take a game theory approach in DeFi, right? Because you want to minimize your interactions with the smart contracts so that you can ultimately save money or, you know, recoup, or not even recoup, but you want to save on the things that you're doing. So let's just say, once again, if you're doing DeFi on the Ethereum network is much different from doing DeFi on the Binance Smart Chain, is much different from doing DeFi on Solana or on Polygon or on Phantom. They all have their own fees. So just on the network level itself, right? So layer one level, you need to understand how gas is working, right? To move assets, to swap assets, that's going to cost you a certain amount of the underlying asset, whether it's Ethereum, BNB, Solana, Polygon, Phantom, so on and so forth. Avalanche, keep naming all those. But then if you are interacting with a protocol like Spooky Swap or Pancake Swap or Aave or Quick Swap, so on and so forth, there are going to be smart contract interactions on those individual platforms that are going to charge you their own fees to interact with their smart contracts. So that's the higher layers of the DeFi stack, so to speak, that you're going to also be paying gas for. Hopefully that's not getting overly technical, but you know, let's just say once again, you have $1,000 in Ethereum today, and you want to start getting into DeFi. So you go to Compound Finance. You're going to have to pay a smart contract interaction fee to enable the smart contract for whatever asset you want to pledge on Compound, right? Then you're going to have to pay a fee to actually pledge your crypto. Then if you want to get a loan, you have to pay another smart contract fee to get a loan. So right there, that's 3 smart contract interactions that you're going to have to pay fees for. In the $1,000 of Ethereum, when it's all said and done, if we're talking Ethereum, you might be paying anywhere between $75 and $100 in Ethereum just to do those 3 interactions. I mean, I don't know what gas fees are looking like today, but when they were out of control, I mean, I was paying $75 for a smart contract interaction. I'm like, am I really getting ahead here, right? So that's what led a lot of people to move to other networks where you can really engage in microtransactions. And that's where the proposition of, a Binance Smart Chain, the value proposition of a Binance Smart Chain presents itself, or a Solana, so to speak. So I don't want to get too far off into that, but I see some other questions here.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the best thing to do, just realize that every time you do a transaction, just any transaction, there's probably going to be some fees, and sometimes they're small, and sometimes Ethereum and some others, they're large, and you need to think about it. Like on Binance, BNB, they're almost irrelevant. I don't even think or worry about it. But other ones, you definitely want to keep them in mind.
Yeah, and actually, I see in here in the chat, Lino made a very good analogy. It's like a toll booth to get to the other side, and that's you're paying a toll essentially, right? So this is very much akin to transportation. If you want to get from point A to point B, you need gas, and in order to get on one side of the bridge to another, you got to pay a toll. That's all gas fees are, and they vary once again. Where are the fees listed? So you can go to Etherscan, and Etherscan will tell you what gas costs approximately at any given time. I don't know on other networks how to necessarily, they don't have well, there's always going to be gas depending on network congestion. So that's really what the gas price depends on, is how busy is the network at any given time. If it's really busy, really congested, gas fees are going to be higher. If there's not a lot of activity, gas fees are going to be lower. So Etherscan is essentially the blockchain explorer for Ethereum, or one of the blockchain explorers for Ethereum. There's several out there, but Etherscan is probably the foremost blockchain explorer. All right, so now I can finally talk about staking versus liquidity provision versus yield farming. All these are different ways to earn interest in DeFi, but each have a different smart contract interactions that can have significant effects on your gas. So staking is a way to earn interest on a single digital asset. So let's just say Aave, for example. You can stake or pledge Ethereum on Aave, and you will get a small interest rate on your Ethereum. They may pay it out in Ethereum, they may pay it out in Aave, but you're just using one asset that you're pledging to that platform. What they do with it, that's a good question. They could use it, or well, I'm thinking of MakerDAO, but let me not get too confused. They use it for their own purposes, but ultimately you're taking value and you are locking it into their protocol, into their system. And in exchange for you pledging your asset, they will give you a reward. Once again, it could be interest on your Ethereum, it could be a payout on another token, so on and so forth. Liquidity provision is a little bit different. So if we look at decentralized exchanges, swaps on decentralized exchanges as a foreign exchange transaction, right? You're exchanging Ethereum for wrapped Bitcoin, or you're exchanging Ethereum for USDC, right? You are essentially saying in the liquidity provision process that you are going to take these pair of assets and you want to allow for there to be liquidity on decentralized exchanges so that when swaps occur from one asset to another, the availability of those assets to be there to facilitate swaps, it'll essentially make those swaps easier to take place, because once again, you have pledged liquidity to the system. So if someone says, hey, I want to buy $200 worth of Ethereum or $200 worth of USDC, whoever is posting that order, they can have their order met very quickly, because once again, the assets are there and they're available. And what you get in exchange is, once again, a piece of those fees. So every swap that takes place, you as a liquidity provider get a piece of the daily fees, the weekly fees, the monthly fees that are happening on that DEX. Also, there are these protocols that are called automated market makers, or AMMs, which allow for liquidity to take place in different places, wherever the need is. So, you know, some DeFi protocols will actually make it so you can pledge liquidity on one protocol, but then they are also providing their liquidity to other protocols that may need it. So it gets very deep, very technical. And now to take this to another level, right? So you have liquidity provision and you are earning fees on that liquidity provision. Some protocols will say, hey, we want your liquidity, instead of keeping your liquidity on Uniswap, why don't you come to our protocol and pledge your liquidity, and we'll give you an even better reward, a more attractive reward. So that's when you're taking your LP and then staking your LP somewhere else. So right there, if we look at the smart contract interactions that take place on staking, you are going to most likely enable staking to take place on a platform before you can even do it. So that's just basically you're opting into the staking process, which once again is one smart contract interaction. Then to actually stake is another smart contract interaction. You're going to pay gas on both of those interactions. With liquidity, most likely they are going to ask you to enable the fact that you are going to allow for liquidity for each asset. So there's two right there just to enable liquidity provision. And then the liquidity provision itself is a third contract interaction. And when we're talking about yield farming, that's a fourth interaction. So once again, if you're doing DeFi on Ethereum, those gas fees add up. And then what happens, once again, when you want to take your assets out of liquidity or out of yield farming, you're going to have to pay a gas fee or smart contract interaction to remove from yield farming, then to remove liquidity. So once again, you have to have a strategy that makes sense for you and what you're trying to achieve. And all those are going to be individualized. It's going to be up to you, and it does take a little bit of research.
Yeah, and Octavio had a question here. If you want to jump in, Octavio, on your question on staking, go ahead.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there's a little echo, but go ahead.
Echo? Is it better now?
Yeah, much better. I'm not sure, but yeah, go ahead.
He just stood up. I wanted to ask Kamal, is that the way you say it, Kamal, your name?
Yep, yeah, you got it.
I wanted to ask you, when is it, how much is it, or like, I want some clarity on how to, I have some Ethereum in my wallet that I keep because I'm invested in a project, an DeFi project. And I wanted to know how much Ethereum I can grab from my wallet and stake it so that I can make money on that while I pay for my monthly dues for my project. I've been told that, you know, if you stake some of that money, it might cost you more to stake it because you have to pay for the fees that you just talked about right now. So I wanted to know if it's worth it to stake anything less than 500, or is it 1,000, or is it 1,500, or just forget about it? When do you actually stake for money?
Well, I mean, this comes down to an individual investor question, but active investors are always going to make more than passive investors, right? Now, everybody wants passive income, and those aren't mutually exclusive. You can be very active, and typically people who do well in DeFi, they are making moves, right? So this goes back to the game theory. Like, if you just want to park your Ethereum somewhere and you just want it, you don't want to check on it daily. You maybe want to check on it every week or every month. There are protocols out there to find. It's tougher. I can give you not so much a recommendation, but I can tell you where I put my Ethereum. And actually, there's a number of places where I put Ethereum. So on the Ethereum network, I put it in a place called, it's an old smart contract. It's not being maintained anymore. Funds are still there. User funds are still there. It's called Bankroll Play. Now, the only problem with that is there's a 10% tax that's charged, a 10% entrance fee and a 10% exit fee. So if you're going to put Ethereum in there, you are going to want to put it in there for a very, very long time. Now, if you're going to take your Ethereum in and out of that smart contract, it's probably not going to make a lot of sense for you. So this is where, once again, not only smart contract, your gas strategy comes into play, but it also is the protocol rules that come into play. So once again, that's a long-term play for me for Ethereum. What I'm doing more so is I'm taking my Ethereum off the network, moving it to the layer 2 scaling solutions like Polygon, or not even so much a scaling solution, but like Binance Smart Chain, where the fees are much lower, and going on platforms there where I can earn an interest rate. And when I need to get that interest or draw and take profits off that interest, I can take it off that platform and bring it back to Ethereum if I need to, or just cash it out on another network.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Sure thing, sure thing.
And we've got a hand up here, A, if you want to unmute, there you go.
Oh, hi, sorry. And my name is Allegra. Sorry about that. I forgot to change my name in there from A. I just had a sort of a weird question, because you mentioned active investors always make more money than or earn more than passive investors. Can I ask what your source is for that? I just am curious, because what I know of traditional finance, they're like, day trading is a good way to lose your money. You kind of want to have a longer term strategy. So I don't know if there's something I don't know about crypto, that's a different way. Yeah, there's a different idea on that or something.
Yes. Well,
could you address?
I guess I'll preference that. I'll go back to preface that statement is, you do need to be as educated or as informed as possible in the decisions that you're making, right? But in DeFi, what typically happens is you have these interest rates, whether it's an APR or an APY, you'll see them be very high on a given protocol. Now, this is kind of more of an intermediate or higher level strategy when it comes to DeFi. Everyone's always looking for those higher interest rates. Those higher interest rates typically only stay for a very short amount of time. Why? It's to draw in new investors to pledge their liquidity or pledge their assets to a given protocol so that they can have a higher total value locked, which also attracts more investment. So once again, let's just say you go to DeFi protocol A on Monday and they have 1,000% APR. you put your money there or you put your funds there, but by Wednesday, it goes down to 800 APR. By Friday, it's at 600 APR. Friday, what I'm typically looking to do is to move to another protocol that has that 1000% APR. So that's what I mean by active. You're making moves, and if you're on these networks that have lower fees, then you can make these moves much quicker, be much more agile. Whereas on Ethereum, it's a little bit tougher. You have to make that decision. Is this going to make sense for me? Right? So this goes back into strategy and game theory. Am I going to pay a $50 smart contract interaction to remove my funds and then go to another protocol? So
that makes complete sense. I just didn't know if there was any like actual case studies or anything where you could say, hey, the people who are investing in crypto are doing better doing that short-term trading status strategy. It may be that there aren't any case studies or anything like that. So it hasn't been around long enough or anything like that. So what you're saying makes sense completely.
Yeah, and I think, this is, everyone's different, right? And everyone sees value in different networks differently. But if we're just going to, even what I discussed, that's called degen trading, right? It's kind of like a insular DeFi term. DeFi degen trading is someone who's just there to get the profits, and they have no loyalty to one project or another. They're just trying to, once again, get those high APRs or high APYs, get in, get out, make a profit. And then with crypto in general, right? There's new crypto assets that are being launched daily, weekly, right? And when these new assets are on the market, typically they have a high growth rate. They have that high trajectory, and then they'll kind of bottom out as the early investors are going to sell and take profit. So it's kind of, once again, knowing how to make those trades. Am I doing this all the time, every day? No, absolutely not. Do I check? I do research every day, and if moves make sense, I make moves. Am I a tried and true DeFi degen trader? Absolutely not. But every now and then I do engage in that degenerate DeFi trading behavior, and I apologize for that. All right, sorry about that.
All right. Yeah, let's see. Let me check in with Ray. You had your hand up a while ago and have made some great comments. Anything else you want to add, Ray? And then maybe mention the flash loans real quick.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
sure
ahead.
can.
I've been doing this for a while, and some of the terminology, respectfully, is not quite following and making sense. I put the link in there for CoinMarketCap. CoinMarketCap is actually the best source for finding the protocols. And when you go to CoinMarketCap, you'll see the first ones at the top. Uniswap version 3, PancakeSwap, DYDX you can access from the United States, but the next one's down. HoneySwap is a good player. CageChain is a good player. They all provide what is called staking. And when you're staking, you're really just simply depositing money. So it's kind of like a bank. You put money into a savings account, it provides interest. Some banks, you put money into a checking account, they provide interest. What these protocols are doing, they're called protocols. They're basically banks. Uniswap, PancakeSwap, Apollo, HoneySwap, that's all they are. And you put money into those accounts and they have different interest rates. When you go into those different protocols, they have different pools of money. And depending upon how many people are depositing into different pools, they have different interest rates. Some of those interest rates can be extremely high. Some can actually have 1,000% interest rate for 1 year. Some can have 500, some can have 300 interest rate, some 1,000, 100, or 50% interest rate for the year. What the mining is really all about, in what I think is trying to be explained, is that you do have to pay very, very, very close attention. This is almost like day trading. When you have high rates, it means things are moving quickly, things are going to disappear. There are protocols that disappear overnight, and there are accounts that close overnight. So you have to keep very close attention. I don't think anybody on this call is going to play at that level. But there are people who do that kind of farming, like myself, and there are ways to do it with bots. That's another long conversation where it's automatically done for you. So you can program a bot to work on 10 to 20 different protocols, moving money in and out of these different pools of money with these high rates of return. That's another game, and that's probably not for this call. But for the average person, you can go into any one of these top 5 and you can deposit money into these different accounts. The way to learn about this is to go to this link that I posted for you, go to those top 5, click around, look at it, just observe it. The terminology and discussion about smart contracts doesn't even play here. I program smart contracts to do bots, to go on to these protocols and to do exchanges. The average person is just simply using what's called the interface. It's called a user interface. So when you go on to Uniswap, PancakeSwap, HoneySwap, and you say, well, I want to swap some currencies. Yes, you have your wallet. You initially put money from your own bank account into that wallet, which allowed you to buy the first cryptocurrency that you're going to start with. And very often people do indeed go to Ethereum to do that. However, you do not have to do that. You can buy any token you want. For instance, DAI, D-A-I, that's an equal $1 token. So $1 regular cash equals 1 DAI. That gas fee is extremely low. And so you go into DAI, into your wallet, then with DAI, you deposit your DAI into any one of these protocols. So let's say I'm just working with $100. So I buy $100 worth of DAI using my wallet, and MetaMask is the best wallet for online. The wallets are another story, another complete story about how you do with the wallets, but let's just stay with this for now. So you go to MetaMask, you get your transfer money from your bank account to the MetaMask wallet. Then when you're in one of these protocols, you say, okay, let me see where the different pools are and see where the different rates, interest rates are on the different pools. You can deposit your $100 into one of those pools. You will see, once you spend time looking around on these different pools, these different protocols with their different pools, that they have interest rates like 10%, 8%, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50%. And these are interest rates normally by the year. That number is based by the year. But you will also notice when you actually go onto these protocols using that interface, this has nothing to do with smart contracts at all. When you use those interfaces, you will see that you can stake, which is deposit your money for 7 days, 30 days, 60 days, or 1 year. There are different amounts of time that you can put the money into the account. So that's the same thing as a bank. How long would you like to leave your money in our bank? Well, I'll leave it in for, for a year or so. Based on how long you say you're going to stake the money, deposit the money with, let's say, Uniswap, because it right now is the #1 protocol in this decentralized exchange space. If you deposit it for just 7 days, you will have a certain interest rate. If you say, oh, I'll leave it here for 30 days, the interest rate will change. If you do it for 60, it will change. If you do it for a year, it will change. It's just like a bank saying, we want to keep your money as long as we possibly can, and we will pay you a higher interest rate if you keep your money with us. The answer of what they're doing with the money, what do these protocols do? Why do they exist? Because they turn around and they provide cryptocurrency loans to investors like me. And so I can take and get a loan from Uniswap, PancakeSwap, HoneySwap. I can get loans from them. They are cryptocurrency loans. Then I can turn around and use that cryptocurrency loan and invest it somewhere else. That's another long story about how to invest that money when I borrow it. But when you borrow cryptocurrency from a decentralized exchange, also called protocols, again, Uniswap, PancakeSwap, HoneySwap, when you borrow that money, that's how they're making their money. That's how they can afford to pay 100%, 300%, 400% interest rate back to people, because they're out there loaning at a very high rate to investors who turn around and use it in other ways. That's how it works. But yes, it's true that these high rate interest rate pools come and go very rapidly. And the other thing that happens is that, let's say a group of people, 100 people, they go to Uniswap and they see one of the pools. Again, to be clear, in these different pools, like Uniswap, they'll have 10 to 20 different pools of money. And you can invest in any, or deposit, stake in any one of those pools. Those different pools will have different interest rates. The reason those interest rates are changing is because every time somebody puts more money into a pool, the interest rate drops. So let's say at the moment we have 100 people that have put money into pool number 1.
Yeah, Ray, hold on for me just a second, Ray. We need to get back to Kamal. We only have him for a limited time.
Sorry, guys, I got carried away.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no, we appreciate the interaction completely. And next month, we're planning to talk a little more hands-on, doing this kind of stuff. Kamal's giving us a little higher picture.
And I will absolutely stop. I will absolutely stop. But it is really important that the smart contract conversation has nothing to do with what's being discussed here. When you're dealing with these protocols and you're staking money, you have nothing to do with smart contracts. There's user interfaces. You go in there, you got a little pull down list, you pick which currency you're going to swap and which currency you're going to deposit. It has nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah, I think some of that's terminology because each of the pools is actually a separate smart contract. But again, that's getting.
But the difference is that for the average user who's simply depositing, staking money, that has nothing to do with it. If from a programmer's point of view, absolutely everything that happens on centralized and decentralized exchanges, everything and anything that happens involves smart contracts. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But,
it's just a terminology.
But it's important to understand that for the average person who's simply interacting and staking money, and then indeed doing yield farming, where you're going between the different, which is another long conversation about how you really do yield farm and can actually make 200-300% return on your money per year. You're not having anything to do with these contracts, nothing to do with them.
Right.
And so, and I do agree with what you're saying, that even as I've progressed through this whole process, the terminology, yes, is confusing. And so people, as they're getting into it and learning more and more about it, you're beginning to realize, no, wait a minute, is it a protocol or is it an exchange? What is the difference, right? And so some people will call a protocol an exchange, and they'll call an exchange a protocol. Well, what's the difference? The difference is the exchanges are centralized, which means they're governed by Securities and Exchange Commission, where the decentralized have no oversight whatsoever by any government agency. That's the difference between centralized and decentralized. Decentralized are protocols, centralized are exchanges. Even though right on coin market cap, it will say at the top currency decentralized exchanges. Yet you go to Uniswap and it will say we're a protocol, not an exchange. So you're right. The terminology is very confusing in this space, even by the players who are setting these things up.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I'll leave it alone. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ray. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead and come on.
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, I wanted to allow Ray and really, once again, everybody, the space to kind of chime in. And a lot of times in crypto, there are people who don't want to feel as though they're wrong about things or be wrong. Hey, I'm learning new things. And I think Ray brought a lot of really good points to the table. There might be some things I disagree with, but it's about having the discussion, the interaction. And, you know, I also wanted to present more information in terms of Ethereum as a dark forest. That's a really good article. You guys should check that out. Maybe that can get thrown into the Google Doc just for future reference. It really does. It speaks to a lot of what Ray had to say on a number of things. And, but
I'll just say that article I have read 3 times, and the authors of those articles are the players that I'm working with. I'll leave it at that.
So
give you a sense of my knowledge.
Yeah, hopefully it's something that you guys find valuable or resourceful. And but I'm going to continue on here in the interest of time. So one thing that I do think is important is discussing the risks and appreciating the risks that are associated with DeFi, and a lot of it overlaps into crypto. And I think one of the major risks that are associated is user risk. You know, us making mistakes, whether it's a fat finger or not necessarily knowing what you're doing, or, you know, another of other things, but user risk is a major thing. So it's good, in my opinion, to take a measure twice, cut once approach to this. So, you know, doing not practice transfers, but, you know, transfers of small amounts to people, making sure that they've received it, or doing everything you can to understand how an interaction is going to take place. And this requires concentration. It requires time. You can't just do it on a Saturday night while you're drinking a glass of wine. So, you know, keep that in mind, because at the end of the day, this is your money. You do want to have some degree of concentration in what you're doing. Security risk, this is a major factor. We're starting to see more and more hacks taking place in DeFi. So there's security on many different levels and different facets on the user end, on the project protocol ends. And so, you know, that's just another risk that is in there. It's part of it. Regulatory risk. You know, the US has kind of taken a wait and see approach when it comes to crypto. They've regulated in certain areas. Recently, President Biden put forward an executive order looking to explore blockchain and cryptocurrencies further. So in a lot of ways, that was a good thing, could be seen as a bad thing as well. But it's just saying that the United States is looking into crypto and blockchain as well as an industry of growth, trying to find ways of consumer protection before, you know, really moving forward in the space. But you never know. Next week, there could be a major hack, and that causes, you know, Congress or the president to want to put more regulatory crackdowns. We never know when those decisions can be around the corner. continuing with risk, there's always market risk. There's so much market volatility and unpredictability that goes into crypto, because let's just look at Bitcoin, right? Someone said Bitcoin was supposed to be $1 million 2 years ago, but it's not. So we can never really tell and make these calls. And in terms of price, it's just, but that's also the intriguing part of crypto too, is we never know which asset is going to make that next jump in price. So to me, that's what kind of makes it fun. Smart contract risk. Now there can be flaws in smart contract code. Typically smart contracts, some developers will copy and paste these smart contracts into their protocol to make a duplicate, so they will say, hey, I'm going to create a copy of PancakeSwap, right? But if they use an old version of PancakeSwap code that can be vulnerable, that's where the risks lie in smart contract risk. And then, of course, there's your good old-fashioned rug pulls, where a project will say, hey, we are creating this project to make DeFi better. And at the end of the day, they just take everyone's funds, and it's a fraudulent outfit. So, these are, I think, if you've been in DeFi long enough, you've made some of these mistakes on varying levels, and it just comes with the territory. In my book, I go through a much more comprehensive list in terms of the risks that are faced. And now this, not going on a deep dive once again on the risk, but these are things to keep in mind. And, maybe second or even more important than user risk is the risk of impermanent loss. Now, the definition of impermanent loss is when liquidity pools, there's losses that are taken on one asset or another. So let's just say you pledge liquidity in the form of Ethereum and wrapped Bitcoin. Now, both of those assets are going to be subject to market volatility. And once again, if the crypto markets take a tremendous hit next week, you are also going to see that loss. Let's just say, once again, you put $1,000, 500 in Ethereum, 500 in wrapped Bitcoin one day, but the value of those assets over the week's time can both go down to, let's just say, $300 each. You've lost money, right? And that's just subject to the market price of those individual assets. So typically what you'll see to hedge this, once again, is you'll have a variable asset that gets paired with a stable asset. So, Ethereum paired with a USDC, paired with a Tether, paired with a DAI, some other stable coin to help stave off the risk of impermanent loss. But that's definitely how you can lose a lot of money, because what you'll see is you'll see a high APR or a high interest rate on, let's just say, a new asset that's out there. And then they'll want you to pair it with another variable asset like an Ethereum or Phantom or anything like that. But, if both of those assets take a hit, you can definitely come out with less than what you brought into the mix. So, keep an eye on impermanent loss. Do what you can to learn more about it. I'm being very cursory when it comes to it. So just to move on. Now we're actually getting to, now that I've provided this background on DeFi, let's talk about the practical uses of DeFi. And really, two of them that I see now currently is lending, borrowing, and saving, right? So being able to lend out your crypto and earn an interest rate. Also being able to save your crypto in the form of staking, right? And then borrowing crypto in the form of a loan at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These are the practical uses, or among the most important practical uses. And well, I think the number one practical use of DeFi is making money, right? That's why all of us are here. We're all investors. We want to make money and find ways to make more money. But being able to have access to loans has been very important. It's changed a lot of people's lives. So last month, or maybe it was earlier this month, I had an opportunity to speak in front of a group of real estate professionals. And what is happening commonly now is people will take their crypto, put it up as collateral, get a crypto loan, cash out that loan, and take that cash and put it towards a down payment on real property. So I'm seeing some head nods there. People have heard about this. So that's a practical use. And once again, by you putting more money down on a property, you are going to pay less on that mortgage that you would on that property. Now you got to manage your mortgage and you got to manage your crypto loan, but it's enabling someone to get either more property than they could have or a lower interest rate on their mortgage than they would have. So that's, once again, one of those real practical uses of DeFi. And then, of course, asset financing. We're starting to see this with the tokenization of real world assets in the form of NFTs. Real estate is another use case that is being used often, or it's a use case that is cited often, because what happens? Properties are being tokenized in the form of NFTs and are being now currently sold. If you've ever heard of things like Proppy, or projects called, there's a project out there called Proppy that is putting real estate on the blockchain, and they're doing it in the form of NFTs. And we're also starting to see these large auction houses like Christie's and Sotheby's that are selling NFTs as well, and fine artists too, who are saying, hey, we're gonna take our physical art, tokenize it, so that people can have fractional interest in this fine art who couldn't afford it previously. So, you know, the financing of assets is another practical use. Now, we're kind of looking out here, but DeFi is going to be a major part of the future of work, right? So we're starting to see the emergence of the gig economy. The gig economy is going to be moving more so into blockchain and crypto, where gig workers are saying, hey, you know what? I want to be able to get exposure to more gigs, and not just driving, not just, you know, food delivery. They want to do different tasks. They want to get paid in crypto, and then they can turn around and take that crypto and stake it or provide liquidity and earn interest on that crypto, which is something, you know, once again, I see that as the future of work, where people are going to be able to do what they want when they want, and once again, earn crypto and then earn money on the money that they earned doing these jobs. So like I said, I'm being very cursory here with this stuff, and you know, feel free to go into even more detail. Now, here's something that I find particularly interesting. We're starting to see the emergence of play to earn gaming on blockchain. So there are these blockchain games where you are earning cryptocurrencies. You know, how many of us were told, oh, you know, why are you playing these video games? They're not going to have any practical use in your life. Now, if any of you guys are parents and you got kids who are playing these video games and they're not getting anything out of it, you got to turn them towards these play to earn blockchain games. We're seeing a vast emergence of esports as an industry unto itself. And we're seeing also the gaming industry wanting to intersect with blockchain and with crypto and with NFTs. So now, being early entrants into these play to earn games, there's going to be ways to stake certain drops and to earn interest on the drops that the game is putting out there, which creates its own sort of what's called GameFi, right? So that's the intersection of gaming and DeFi. So this could be a way for, yeah, you know, your kids to start earning money or crypto while they're gaming and playing these games. So now they can actually earn money doing it, and they don't have to join one of these esports teams and, you know, play games all day. They can play as much as they want. They can earn what they want. And they're doing this on top of everything else. So just wanted to present that as something that is out there as a possible practical use. And, you know, with GameFi, once again, people are able to earn tokens for playing, and it takes the overall value proposition of gaming. It's being shifted from the console and game manufacturers to the actual player, right? Because now the game developers are trying to incentivize the players to come play their games. They'll say, hey, we'll give you these crypto rewards if you play our game instead of someone else's game. And that incentivizes gamers, because instead of going to GameStop and paying $500 to buy a new console and then another $60 to buy a new game, they're saying, hey, well, I can get paid to play the games that I like. So it is shifting, once again, the value, and it's kind of decentralizing things as well. And people who win NFTs, they can also earn profit on those and the underlying coins itself. All right, so I just want to take a shout out to my sponsor, which is Grow Mine Operation. They have a 50% crypto contribution match. So I'm going to leave that QR code up on the screen. So if you guys want to scan that, and you can learn more about GMO, which is a host mining platform. They're based in Washington State. And I just want to read this really quick to you about GMO. So Grow Mine Operation is a unique rewards token backed by a cryptocurrency mine. They have an actual mining facility, and their mission is to create a thriving community where mining and cryptocurrency investing go hand in hand, and it makes it achievable for everyone. So if you guys are interested, the GMO match will be, once again, if you contribute $50 to their platform, they will give you free GMO crypto in exchange. So, you know, it would ultimately equate to $100 with your contribution of 50. So I'm going to put that QR code back up there for a little bit and maybe answer a couple of questions. So Allegra, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, this is a bit of an unusual question. But I have two very young nieces who are, you know, just starting to get into school. And I have been like nagging my brother, who knows finance, because I've been watching the way pay to play gaming has been going and a lot of stuff with crypto on that. And I'm like, get them into the gaming right now. Get them, you know, I want them in front of a screen as much as possible. And my brother is like, absolutely not. Yeah, I want to limit their screen time. And I know a lot of young girls do not really get into gaming very much. Do you have any idea how to make that more accessible to females and girls? Because I know gaming has been a bit of a sensitive subject that a lot of young women have not been wanting to get into that arena. And everything I've seen, I'm like, if you're going to be making money going forward in the future, you've got to get used to that.
Well, you know, that is a great question. And
I'm sorry, it is a bit of a long one. I've just seen it happen again and again and again with my female friends.
You're right. So there's a lot of ways I could answer this question, but yes, there is not a lot of diversity when it comes to blockchain and crypto right now, especially when it comes to women. And what I've seen is there's a lot of women's in crypto investor groups out there where women share information with each other. So, you know, I've been in crypto for years now. My wife earlier this year joined one of these groups with a bunch of her friends, and she started telling me about NFTs. And I was like, you know, back in 2018, I had an NFT offering with the Wu-Tang Clan, and I thought I told you about it, honey. But the thing is there are affinity groups, right? And she is going to take in more information about crypto from other women who are her friends and her peers and her contemporaries, more so than
Right.
she would with me. And I recognize that and I understand that. And I want to foster that because ultimately, I believe that it's going to lead to greater adoption.
Okay, so you've seen affinity groups to have sort of the most success as far as helping them out and making them comfortable with that, because I think it's really largely a matter of the gaming aspect, and they're kind of turned off by gambling and gaming as a whole.
Yeah, I see younger women being more and more interested in gaming nowadays than when I was younger. So I do think it is important for other women to seek out, women influencers who are gamers and reaching out to them and, following their example or getting with their Telegram groups or their Discord channels. That would be, because, hey, look, I'm sure probably to some extent I've engaged in my share of mansplaining on this call and just generally in life, right?
Oh,
And
no,
so,
yeah, it's just me being curious because I've seen this happen again and again and again with my female friends, and I really do think they're kind of turned off by the competition aspect of it, of gaming is a big part of it.
yeah,
It's sort of
yeah.
weird.
And I mean,
And I just don't know how to make them more comfortable with it and be like, look, that's the way finance is headed, is, if you're going to be investing, got to get more comfortable with this.
well, I mean, I think there are games out there that people can play. And if you are just playing these games to earn crypto, to ultimately, one, to help you have fun, and then to get rewarded in the process, it's a matter of just taking all that into perspective, right? Now, yes, there are games out there that people play where, the interactions can be very competitive to the point to where it's abusive. I understand that. And that's unfortunate. But once again, I think it's just taking things and putting it in perspective. Hey, if I play this game for an hour a day, I get a little crypto in exchange for it. It is what it is. I take that crypto and, somewhere down the line, I trade it for a crypto that I actually want. Like, I actually am a blogger on a platform called Publish 0x. Now, I've been blogging for a long time, haven't made a whole lot of money in it, but 2 years ago when I joined Publish 0x, it all accumulated. I would get 25 cents here for an article. Every once in a while, I would get really lucky on an article and make $5. But I got paid out in crypto. And when Ethereum increased in value, I made more money, right? So it's more or less a thing of kind of allowing it to accumulate. It's a small amount from a very transactional end, right? If you play one game, you don't make a lot. But if that asset accumulates over time, and once again, if you switch it out to, a top 10 digital asset, then it's essentially like you're saving, and it will begin to grow over time. You just kind of forget it. It's almost like a savings account or a way to earn crypto that you're just going to save and not use to buy anything or cash out immediately.
Okay, we got another question from Andres here. Go ahead, Andres.
Hey, Kamal, how you doing? Thank you for your sharing your information, your knowledge, and everything. And I have two questions. First question is like, do you know some games that are best to earn crypto? What do you recommend? And what is like the scope? Like, what this platform earn, from you, like playing their games? And my second question is, I quite don't understand what is the impermanent loss when you do the pool. So if you can explain like in the short words, like what it does mean.
Well, okay, just to address impermanent loss, because that can be a very high level concept, but it's basically if you enter a pool one day and the underlying value of those assets are one price, and that price goes down after time, then you can ultimately come out of that pool with less money than you did coming into it. So in a lot of ways, it's good, once again, to pair assets that are, you're pairing one variable asset, like an Ethereum, once again, that is subject to market volatility, against a stable asset, like a stable coin. So that's going to hedge against your impermanent loss. Now, it cuts both ways, right? So let's just say you have two variable assets that go up in price over time, then you're winning, right? But, we're more focused on our losses than we are our gains. So I will encourage you to take a deeper look into that. It's really, for me today, about putting it on your radar and what the concept is, so that it is a known unknown for you, right? I'm probably not doing much, once again, to help you understand the concept, but it's something you can look into and understand it as a risk.
Yes,
as a DeFi investor.
It is my understanding that you can come without with a loss if you take it out of the pool, but the market goes in waves and you can wait until that price goes up again.
Brad, you want me to jump in on impermanent loss real quick?
Sure.
What impermanent loss actually refers to is, on all of these protocols that we talked about before, there's 179 protocols out there, but the top 5, we'll just address those. When you put money into one of those pools, you're staking money into a pool, you're depositing money into an account. They are in pairs. Like in currency trading, currency is always in pairs. You match American dollar with Japanese dollar, you match American dollar with UK dollar. So in currency trading, it's the same thing. When you put money into these pools, there's a total of 19,100 currencies right now. If you go to the top of CoinMarketCap again, the website that I gave a link to, the very, very top far left corner, it tells you how many currencies there are. Currently, 19,100 and something. So when you put money into a pool, it's actually into a pair. So they're mixing two different pairs. So when people put money into these pools, those pairs will come out of balance. Normally you want 50-50. So in a pool, you can have one currency and another currency. And initially, when the pool starts, they're at 50-50, 50%, 50%. But as more money and more people keep depositing, keep staking, those different currencies will come out of balance. So now one currency is sitting at 40%, the other one is at 60%. So when you first deposited, ideally, you deposited in each of those currencies within a pair, were at 50-50, because other people coming in behind you have either taken money out, currency out, or they have deposited cryptocurrency in. Those pairs will come out of balance. And when they come out of balance, if you then try to take your money out and it's out of balance, you will have lost money. And that is impermanent loss, because you have lost money because the pairs have come out of balance, because other people have deposited or withdrawn and they've gotten out of balance. So you have to keep your eye on the balance of the pairs. And it shows it right in the protocol, in the user interface. You can actually see what the percentages are between the two currencies. As you look at these different protocols, just pay attention to the fact that everything is in pairs. They always match two currencies together for whatever reason, without getting into all of that detail. But that's what impermanent loss is.
Okay.
It's the loss of the balance of the value of the pairs.
Okay, yeah, now I understand. So
Good.
it's better.
Thanks,
better.
Ray. And then we had somebody else, Andres, and then Kamal, real quick. I had the same problem too, and somebody else mentioned it on that QR code. It was a little low on the screen and we couldn't see it. That might work better. And if you want to give it
out a presentation view. So.
Yeah, if you want to send me, if there's a link, I can just add the link itself.
Yeah,
I will to the Google Doc or whatever. But I know you've got to go here in a couple minutes. So any last thoughts or you
I will
want to share?
the presentation into the Google Doc so everyone can have it for later. And yeah, you guys can connect with me on social media. Another QR code, unfortunately, hopefully. Typically these make things easier, but unfortunately not today. So I will make these slides available immediately after for you guys to check into. And please do connect with me. I think we've covered questions as they kind of came up here. So
yeah, I know you.
Again.
Yeah, thank you. And I know you've got to go. I'll hang around a little bit longer just in case there's any other questions we can answer. But definitely appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you again, Brad. Thanks everyone for showing up. I appreciate the discussion, and this is good. You know, it's always good because it helps me as a presenter to know where to or how to communicate this information a lot better. And if you guys get a chance and you want to pick up a copy of my book, please do. You can find it at my website, www.kamalrhubbard.com. And thanks again. I will make sure to get this presentation ready for you guys in very short order here.
Awesome. Thanks again. And anybody else has a question, I'll hang around here for a few minutes. And if not, we'll see you next month. The meeting, I haven't posted it yet. It's going to be on the first Saturday of June. I don't have that date, but we'll get that posted and emailed out to everybody as well. So thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
All
Thank
right.
you. Bye.
All right, guys. Yeah, I don't see any
Thank
questions, so
you.
we'll call it good. And I will post the link to the recording here as well. So you guys can get that here a little later today when I get that uploaded to YouTube. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Will there be a way to contact